We are going to make an adventuring cloak for less than $30. Yeah, you heard that right. Less than $30. I managed to find some wool blankets from a surplus store that were $29.99 Canadian. Yes, so technically less than $30. This adventuring cloak will be fit for a hobbit or a dwarf or elf or human or whatever you want to play when you're out LARPing or at the Ren Faire. Or if you just want to look really super cool when you're camping, I will leave that up to you. My hope is that I can explain this process as simple and easily as possible so you too can follow along at home and make your own adventuring cloak. There is one issue with that. I haven't done this yet, so you can grade me at the end and tell me how well I did or not. The first thing that we are going to be doing today is creating a mock-up for a couple of reasons. One reason is the blankets, aka the fabric, are in the wash because I forgot to wash them when I brought them home. So yes, I'm actually hoping that they stay true to size. So we're going to use some cheaper fabric to make a mock-up. What is a mock-up, you might ask? Well, a mock-up is when you use fabric, cheaper fabric like sheets that you got at the thrift store, old sheets that you have lying around the house that might have holes in it. Those are perfect to make mock-up. You can get like a cheaper cotton or something to use as mock-up fabric, but why buy that when you can get really cheap and accessible things from the thrift store or that you might be getting rid of, and then just use that as your mock-up fabric. So this is going to allow us to get the measurements that we need for our cloak prior to us cutting into our better fabric. And then we'll know exactly what we need to do as well. Think of this as a practice run for the real thing. So we're practicing to make sure we know how to put this together before we try it on the real thing. Yeah? So let's go. I did search around online looking for a cloak pattern. I wanted this adventuring cloak to be similar to the ones that the hobbits wore in Lord of the Rings. That was easier said than done. So I have acquired a couple of images that instruct you basically on how to measure and make a cloak. One of these is the Painula cloak. I probably just mispronounced that terribly. This one is from the Roman Empire and was used in the Middle Ages, and it looks really simple. I don't think I'm going to be using this one today because I don't think it's going to give me the look I want for this cloak. So I'm just going to be using a basic simple cloak pattern or design to make this cloak. Basically, you have two pieces. You have the cloak body part, and you have a hood. And the hood is comprised of two pieces that you sew together up the back and then attach it around the neckline. Then you sew your seam. So there's not too much sewing in this, which is awesome. There's a couple of measurements that we need before we do this. One of those measurements is how long you would like this to be for your arm. So you need your arm length measurement. You need your back length measurement. So how long you would like it to go down your back. And since I'm going to be wearing this with my hobbit costume that I'm making, I'm going to, words, why aren't you coming out today? I'm going to make mine so that it is essentially that sort of hobbit length. So we'll see if I can accomplish that. We need our arm length to the middle back. I'm going to measure my arm length to the sternoclavicular joint. I'm an X-ray tech, sorry. So basically the notch just above your breastbone right here in between. I'm going to go there because I feel like that's pretty much bang on, or it should be, where the back is. Or you could have someone help you and go to that bump you feel at the back of your neck at the bottom line with your shoulders. That's your C7, like cervical spine level C7 approximately. You can also use that. And I do want to come past my wrist. I think I'm going to go out a little bit further. So we're going to go to fingertips approximately to there. Where am I at? 35 inches. So I have 35 inches there. Yes, I have long arms. Yours probably will not be 35 inches long unless you also have abnormally long arms. When I looked at the reference photos of the hobbits, their cloaks went down to that mid-calf sort of line where their pants end. Where their little pants end. So, I don't know why I'm laughing. I'm going to measure mine the same. Why am I trying to do it from the back? I don't freaking know. I'm going to use my shoulder seam of my t-shirt. 21 plus 18, 39. That took way too long to figure that out. I'm going to say another maybe 10 inches, so 49, 50 inches. My cloak will be 50 inches long from my shoulders down. And if it's incorrect or too long, we can adjust it after this because why? We're doing a mock-up! Yay! When you're doing this, you want a piece of fabric that is folded in half, and you will use that folded edge as the line that goes down your back. So that is the halfway point of your cloak. For the neckline, you draw a semicircle and then leave about 5 centimeters just above that, which is 2 inches. So you want 2 inches for this front fastener bit to create a fastener here. The rest of the huge rectangle you made now, that's folded in half, you are going to make it a little bit more curved so it's not just a giant rectangle. So we're doing 2 inches down and then creating a semicircle for the neckline. So I'm making my neckline about 10 inches wide. I just measured on my shirt from here to here on my seam line where my shoulder is, and it's maybe 9 inches, maybe 10. It was hard to tell. I'm going to do 10 on this. If it's not correct, I can adjust it when I make the real one, which is why we do a mock-up! Yay! So now we are drawing a semicircle. I'm going in about 2 inches. You also don't leave the cloak as a giant rectangle. Once you mark your width and your length and you trim it down to size, then you mark curves for the body of the cloak just as it looks in the picture. And then you cut those out as well. For the hood, we are making another rectangle. The bottom line of the rectangle is your length of your semicircle, so ours is going to be 10, and the top part is going to be the height of your hood. If you want a more snug hood, this is about 10 inches or 25 centimeters. If you want more of a looser hood, it's going to be 35 centimeters or whatever that is, about 14 inches. Can you tell I'm Canadian? I'm going to go for a looser hood, so I think I'm going to do this one 14 by 10 and see what it looks like when we're done. Again, for the hood, you want a folded piece of fabric. Then when you cut out your hood, you have the two halves that you need to sew together. Basically, I'm going to follow what they have as the picture there, even though they don't say to do that, but we are smart. So we're going to draw a hood shape on here. And again, you just draw out your curves much like they are shown in the image and then cut them out. Here I'm just demonstrating the curves of the hood that you draw onto your fabric before cutting them out. Thankfully it's a mock-up and we can make any adjustments we need if we don't like it. Oh, hi. We have our pieces cut out. Now I am going to sew them all together and create a mock-up. I wanted to do a cool transition there and I really wasn't sure what to do. I kind of froze. Whoa, that was fancy transition. I have sewn my mock-up together. And there's a couple of things I immediately noticed when I was doing this. For one, my hood is not big enough. As soon as I stitched up the back side of the hood here, and I put the hood on my head, it was not big enough. The neck hole is really good. I think if you wanted to have more of this to come across, Frodo's wearing a cloak and it comes across and buttons on either side. You could essentially just make your neck hole longer as if you're a hobbit wearing an elven cloak. And then you can bring it across and have buttons on either side over this way. As far as width goes, and the back, it's pretty good. The length is too short. I'm gonna make it longer and maybe wider. Maybe I say because it depends on how wide my wool blanket is when I fold it in half. If it's wider than 36 inches, I can make it wider than this one. If it's not, I can't. I know I can get the length out of it, so that's fine. And then have enough left over for the hood, which I will just make this bit here taller. Since my blankets are not done in the wash, I'm going to throw them in the dryer and play some Baldur's Gate, and then I will meet you back down here. My blankets are now dry. PSA, the amount of dryer lint that these things put off is insane. I stopped and checked them halfway through their drying cycle and the dryer lint tumbled out into the dryer, like a big chunk of it. And then there was still like a thick pad of it left in my lint thing that I threw into the trash and then vacuumed up and ran it again. And the same amount was there the second time. It was insane. And now I have lint all over the place. I carried these down and it's just lint. Yeah. At the surplus store where we bought these blankets, they did have another blanket there that wasn't as heavy as these, and I wasn't sure if it was as large as these as well. It was, I think, maybe only $20 instead of the $30 that these ones were. I kind of wish I had bought one of those as well, just to see the difference between the two of them, because I feel like I can definitely make this cloak out of one of these blankets, and maybe I'll go back in the future and get one of the other wool blankets and try to make a cloak out of that. And I have like a couple of reasons. One being like the fabric's different. The second being that these blankets that I bought are very like rough and not feeling great on skin, but again, they're gonna last forever. It's not a cozy experience if you get my drift. This is like we're roughing it in World War II and they gave you a blanket to sleep with. That's what we're dealing with here. Well, okay then, let's sew one into a cloak. So basically I'm going to alter my measurements slightly. I will tell you what I changed mine into in case you're hoping to recreate this. And yeah, then we'll cut it out and sew it up. I'm actually wondering how to finish these seams on this. mainly because this is really, really thick. And I'm wondering if I even need to. And we're only 30 inches across. Oops. You could add another blanket to it if you really wanted to make it wider. Going with my under $30, am going to not do that. 55 inches long. That should give me enough length. I marked the length that I wanted and then drew on the curves onto the fabric with some chalk, and then just cut out the cloak shape without trimming the entire piece of fabric down to size. The other thing you want to have is this is your folded line. That's your back of your blanket. This time I ended up not doing quite as much of a curve up and around, and I did 55 inches here. I'm still going to do the 10-inch cut at the top with the 2-inch overlap area. Here I'm marking the neckline and cutting that out. I made my neckline 10 inches long and 2 inches wide. Don't forget to cut the neckline open at the front as well on that back fold. Once again, I'm marking my hood shape and cutting it out. I made this one a little bit taller and the same width. I feel like honestly probably should have made my neckline wider and then it would have made the hood deeper. But as we know, hindsight is 20/20. Now that we have our pieces cut out of the wool and we have wool pieces flying through the air, it is time to pin these two together. It is time to sew the top part of the hood up. If you had this open bit at the back, like two of these separate, you would also stitch down the back side of the head of the hood and across the top. I've already bypassed that by leaving a folded edge, so I hope this works out. Ta-da! We have a hood. Oh god. I'm gonna sneeze again. Thought we were gonna attach it to the blanket. This is hit my allergies pretty bad. I did end up double seaming the hood to the body of the cloak so that it was sturdier. So instead of sewing across it once, I sewed across it twice. My hood is not sitting right, and I think I sewed down too far this way perhaps, and should have just stopped. This is the proper length around my neck, so that's great. And it's actually, for just sitting on my shoulders, it's not too bad. I can still wrap her around to stay warm. Pinned it differently to do a different cut and trim more of that. And I have this tufty bit at the top where it sticks out straight here. I could trim that as well to make this a little bit more rounded at the top. And that wouldn't be too hard to do because you just flip it back inside out and you just re-sew that seam. The edges are holding up pretty well, so you can go along and finish it. They've just done a whip stitch like around the edge. But I think I'm going to fix the hood because that's definitely going to bother me. So I am going to reshape the top of this. I'm marking the adjustments I'm making to the hood after I had sewn it onto the body. I just flipped it inside out, marked it with chalk, cut off the areas I didn't want, and restitched them. Oh my god, now we're like so pokey up there. I think it's just the way it is. I'm marking the size of my buttonhole with chalk just so I know where to stitch around. Cut out the inside of that and then sew the button on the other side. And then we should have a button. I did it! I created a buttonhole. Yay! Finally sewing on my button. We may have succeeded in making a cloak that's fit for a hobbit. Hopefully you were following along at home and trying to make one of these yourself, or will be trying to make one of these yourself, because it wasn't too bad. Just make sure you're not allergic to the fabric that you're using. If I were to do this again, I would definitely pick the softer blanket, even though it wasn't 100% wool. I would ensure that I have enough width, which actually, if you look at this with my arm span, this is how wide it should be anyway. So really I was giving myself like extra to help wrap around me more, but essentially that's what you want. You want it to be the length of your arms, which mine is, and the length down my back is pretty good too. It's down to where I wanted it to be. The hood I fixed so that it sits a little bit better. I think I would play around with that a little bit more on the next version, just to see if I could make a better fitting hood. I've made hoods before and I have a pattern of a hood that I really like the fit of, so I would probably just copy that hood out. I think finishing off the edges of the wool around here would be a good idea, but more so for decoration or something in case you wanted to. I hope you enjoyed this video and this cloak making adventure, and you try to make one of these at home for yourself. Honestly, you just need a wool blanket and some patience, and you can have a cool cloak for any event that you're going to. If you want to watch my recent thrift store adventures, where I go to a thrift store and pick out clothing items to make a hobbit outfit, then you can check out this video next. And if you'd like to know how to make some hobbit feet, then you can watch this video next. Lots of stuff for you to watch. And I will see you next week for another crafting adventure.